Good evening. This is another installment of Land Judging. I apologize for being gone for a second day. I hope you guys are able to get this one a little bit better of an understanding. I'll try to go a little slower. Where you are at in Land Judging is getting to the next part called the Recommended Land Treatments, or Part 3. The substitute should have given you a handout that says Land Treatment Notes. I tried to print it off so that you guys can see the information here in the video and then go over to that worksheet and fill it in. After going through class yesterday, I have some pretty high hopes of a few individuals that were starting to grasp how to use the chart to figure out the land capability class. So when they used the chart, they were able to figure out on their cheat sheet letter, zooming in, letter H right there. So you were figuring out the land capability class. Now we're going to move up and over and figure out how to transfer it over to this side, and then figure out our cropland and rangeland. So today's material should be I don't know. We'll find out if it's easy or not for you. You should now have that land treatment note sheet. The video is obviously up and playing if you're listening to it. And I'd like you to keep out your cheat sheet. On the worksheet that was given to you, it says follow along, handouts needed. And that handout that's on there is the land treatment handout, which is on the course documents of the plant and soil science page. You might want to pop it open by looking at the website and going to the course documents, and then it's labeled there. Get it up and rolling. So pause the video and try to get it up and going so that you have it, and if I reference it, I don't need to stop if you pause, I guess. So then it says number 3, you just figured out the soil factors, part 1, depth, surface, permeability, slope, thickness, and erosion. And you then were able to, number 4 says, figure out the chart, to the land capability class, so that you were able to identify the class 1 through 8. You now are moving into the hard part. The hard part, actually this is really easy. If you have land on part 2, if you got land class, say 1, 2, 3, or 4, it's going to match up exactly with the material over on part A. So Julian, you said you had trouble following along with the video, so make sure that you're following along here, where if you in part H got land class 1, 2, 3, or 4, you're going to bring that right over here, and it's going to match up with 1, 2, 3, or 4. On your guys' worksheet, it says Part 3A of the scorecard, called the Land Capability Class. If you get Land Class 1 from letter H on Part 2 of the scorecard, you put down 1, row crop, occasionally soil conservation crop, in the Part 3 letter A. Then if you get land class 2 from letter H on part 2 of the scorecard, you put number 2, row crop not more than 2 out of 4 years. The next one, if you get land class blank from letter H on part 2 of the scorecard, you put row crop not more than 2 out of 6 of the years. I think you can fill in the blank. Should be number 3. The next one should be number 4. Now with the 5th one, if you get land classes 5, 6, and 7, you then put permanent vegetation. It means your land has something in it that's not good enough to give you the ability to farm it. So you need to put it in pasture, which is great because then you can graze it with your goats and your llamas. And so if you get land classes 5, 6, or 7, you put down permanent vegetation. if you live in somewhere besides Nebraska, because it's pretty darn hard to find soil in Nebraska that has to be land class 8, you would actually put down use only for wildlife or recreation. There we're talking about the Rocky Mountains or maybe along the side of an ocean, but in Nebraska you're not going to get land class 8 or using it as number 7, which is called use for wildlife and recreation only. I put it down on there because it's on the scorecard and students sometimes ask questions. Next up, pause this if you have to or rewind it. So I had students say they didn't understand the last video. Well, rewind it and go back and try to fill it in. This video, you can pause, you can rewind, you can fast forward. It's not set, it's a video. Though it looks like I am in this video and talking to you in like real motion, it's not. It's still a video. So let's move on. Part 3, letter B of the scorecard. So I am on now your second page of your worksheet. It says, read page 2, Guide for Applying Conservation Treatments for the Land Evaluation. I want you to pause the video. Read page 2 of the Guide for Applying Conservation Treatments for the Land Evaluation that you pulled off the website. Read that now and fill in those little blanks. It should take you a little while. So pause the video. If you don't pause the video, then you're going to get confused. And then you're going to tell me, Mr. Anderson didn't understand it. Well, the reason you didn't understand is because you didn't pause the video. So now pause the video. Okay. You read that. You came back. Now you're looking for answers. It says, this section is only used if you get land classes 1 through 4. Meaning you checked number 1, row crop occasionally for conserving crop. Number 2, row crop not more than 2 out of 4 years. Number 3, row crop not more than 2 out of 6 years. Number 4, row crop not more than 1 out of 4 years. When you get those, you are in cropland. And you check always. Number 8, practice conservation tillage. Number 9, do not burn crop residue. Number 10, return crop residue to the soil. That only makes sense because it makes your topsoil better and leaves more organic matter. If you are over a 2% slope, you always check number 13, terrace and farm on a contour. Number 14, maintain terraces. Number 15, establish grassed waterways. Then, if you have coarse or very coarse soils, though, it screws everything up because coarse soils have too big of particles to hold a terrace. So you can't terrace, we got to do other things. If you have coarse or very coarse soils, you practice field contour strip cropping or number 11. You also do number 12 by planting a windbreak. That's only if you have coarse to very coarse soils. Then another thing that happens in cropland is you could have a very level area and your water just won't get away, and that's called overhead water is a problem. That would be where you would construct a diversion or sediment basin, meaning it's going to get water out of your area so that you then have soil you can farm. That is number 16. You only do that if overhead water is a problem. If overhead water is a problem, you check 16. It's now a terrace. You then would also check number 14, maintain terraces, because they call this a diversion terrace. And so you're going to do that. You have a terrace. You also would check number 14. If you don't check 13, 14, or 15, or 16, you get a check 17, which is no mechanical treatments are needed. Now, scrolling down, you're ready to go to page number 3. Page number 3 says Part 3, letter C of the scorecard, called Cropland. Read pages 2 of the guide and 3 of the Guide Applying Conservation Treatments. Again, pause the video, read those, fill in the blanks with the numbers that would correspond. Come back. Alright, you're back. It's at 9 minutes 40 seconds, so I want to get going here. We're going to go through rangeland. With rangeland, if you get land classes 5 through 7, permanent vegetation, or you get wildlife recreation one, you are going to have rangeland. When you do rangeland, you always in classes 5 through 7 prescribe burn, and you do proper pasture management and range management. Those two you always do. Then, if there are weeds, you would check number 19, mow or spray for weeds. If you have trees, you would do number 20. Cows can't eat trees, and so they want you to get rid of them. Cows don't like some weeds, so you want to get rid of them. So if there are weeds, you do number 19. If there are trees, you do number 20. If there is less than 25% of the ground is covered by grass, meaning the most of it's bare dirt or just weeds, then you are going to want to establish grasses. Think of it as your lawn. If your lawn is mostly dirt, when you walk through it, you're going to get muddy little toes or dusty little toes, or there's going to be sandburrs in it. So you want to establish more grasses on your lawn. This is the same idea. If you have a rangeland that doesn't have grass, then you're going to want to plant grass. So you would check number 22. It would only make sense then, if you're planting grass, to not graze it. Just like your parents would yell at you, "Get off my lawn," when you're planting a new grass. You do the same thing when you're planting a new pasture. If you do number 22, you would then check number 23, defer grazing, because you don't want the little goats and the llamas going out there and grazing your pastures when excuse me, when they are being established. Now, you move into number 24. If there's plenty of grass, sorry, I skipped one. If there's plenty of grass but is overgrazed, and what I'm going to say for your guys' overgrazing factors would be if it's under your ankle height. So if it's under ankle height, there's lots of grass, you would defer grazing, which would be number 23 by itself. You could also check 23, yes, that's right. Pause the video for a second and think through that. You could also check number 23 if you were establishing it. You would check number 23 by itself if the grass is just too short. Continuing. If there is plenty of tall grass above your ankle because it's been properly managed, you would then check number 24, graze away, let your goats and sheep and cows and horses go because there's plenty of grass they want to eat. Number 25. If there's an exposed area of a washed out material, meaning there's a ditch starting to form, you would control gullies, which is number 25. The last one, if you get land class 8 because it's just something so terrible, which would be very hard in Nebraska because we are the world's best agricultural state, kind of biased. There's actually a few other states that produce a little bit more than us, but we're the best. You are going to check number 18, prescribed burn, and number 26, enhance wildlife habitat and recreation. Because you can't do anything else with your soil, you might as well let the sandhill cranes and the antelope come in and do whatever they do on your soil, because you can't do anything else. You only check enhance wildlife habitat and recreation if it's land class 8 on the scorecard. We're at 14 minutes. Review this, go over it again, because you have time. Go over it again if you need to fill in any of those blanks. Have a good night. I'll review these on Wednesday.